Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting. Guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Bow Hunter. I am Matthias Turner, and today is going to be a little solo-sode. It's just a little recap on a recent hunt that I did. Thank you for those of you who commented on any pictures or posts that I did put up on Instagram. And for those of you who did not, do not worry, because you'll hear the story about it all now. So I'm going to kind of roll through this, and I have explained the property, had the layout and everything before, but I'm actually going to dive into a little bit again just to try really set the scene for you so you understand what is going on. I'll try to repiece it as much as I can in a fun way, and hopefully you guys can enjoy it as we go. So pretty much I got there Friday afternoon to the property. I'd been talking with the farmer quite a lot in the lead up. The farmer is my auntie and my uncle, and my auntie is the one that I probably talk to the most via Messenger, just because my uncle doesn't really talk to me that much on Messenger. He's more of a face-to-face person rather than communicate over the phone. But she'd been messaging me like the weeks in the lead up to going there. So 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, she started sending me videos of deer, saying, hey, mate, I'm seeing them every day. Pretty like clockwork. They're always here. Just sent me all these different little videos, little snippets. She's like, I had them at 30 meters next to the truck today. I was like, wow. Like they usually run off a lot before that, but they're just getting more and more used to their cars being around. And so 2 weeks out, she'd sent me, I think, a video. She sent me like 2 or 3 videos in that 1 week. I was like, wow, things are like, and she said that she saw a bunch of 25, which is pretty unheard of for the block that we've got. Like really, there's never that many there. There's always like a batch of 9 that we see quite regularly, or like up to 9, but 25 seems a bit extreme. So anyway, she sends me some videos, one of a batch of 9 and one of a batch of about 14. And I posted those up on my Instagram feed as well, which is Becoming a Bowhunter. So yeah, becomingabowhunter.podcast. And so yeah, I jumped on, and I was super excited for this hunt. Like I just felt confident about this hunt. I was just pumped up. Like I had my new bow. I had a lot that I was working towards for this hunt. It was the last one for the year, and it had been a while since I've been out. Like the last hunt I went on was the goat hunt that I went on earlier this year. About August, I think it was, and the end of July, start of August. And so things were like, it'd been a bit few and far between, but at the same time, I was just super stoked for it. And I just had a good feeling about it. So I got out there Friday afternoon, and my auntie and uncle actually weren't there. The farmers weren't there. They had gone into town. And so I kind of unpacked my stuff as fast as I could. Like I got there at 3:30, I think it was, and that was at least half an hour later, probably an hour later than when I wanted to actually be there. So I just got like unpacking as quick as I could, chucked all my gear on, and got out into the bush as fast as I could. Took a few shots at my Reinhardt target really quick, just to make sure that my broadheads were still firing well, and they were. I was all stoked, and I'll talk about setup and stuff in a sec for the weekend, but. Yeah, so I kind of got there, and I went straight out into the back paddock. So the way that it's set out their property, they've got two blocks essentially. So a split block, the block where the farmhouse is, and then you've got your back paddocks. And so in the back paddocks, you drive on a main road almost to get into these. And so you drive on the main road. I guess that's the best way of saying it. It's a public road. So you drive on the public road, and then you pull into the block. And the block, they recently acquired the front end of the block. So it's pretty much like just one straight strip. I'm having issues with my mic. One big straight strip. With little blocks that come off to the side of it. So you kind of enter into their property off of the road, and that's their block, and it essentially just drive, like if you just keep driving along that straight strip, like obviously the road's not straight, but yeah, along that is like one big long block. And so driving into that front block, we'll call it the front paddock, and then driving into the back block, which is where the deer usually are, is the back paddock, we'll call it. And off to the side is one that I've talked about quite a lot, called the scrub paddock. So I drove in through the front block, through the front paddock. I drove into the back paddock, and then off to the side there was the scrub paddock. And the scrub paddock, without my knowledge, had been on fire. And so my auntie or uncle didn't mention that to me at all, and it had been completely roasted. Like, it was black and charcoal. And I was like, wow, that is crazy. I never knew that that there was a fire here. It's not something that they'd mentioned at all. And it looked very fresh as well, which was the other bizarre thing. And so I kind of, although that's where the deer are a lot, I had a plan, because the videos that my auntie had been sending me was in this back paddock or just off to the side where they'd had some new dams dug. So my goal, or my plan for that day, was to go park down the back end of this back paddock, walk to the right, like the far right-hand corner of it, and then jump the fence and go into that next paddock, which is where all the new dams had been dug out. So I was like, sick, that's my idea for the day. I'm just going to sit off of that for the last few hours of light, because the videos that she'd been sending me was exactly of that. So I was like, they're creatures of habit, hopefully. That's where the deer are going to be. The red deer are going to be hanging out. So I was driving along, and usually I'm kind of looking left and right, because you're driving along the fence line pretty much of the scrub paddock, and then in that back paddock, and they're typically in one of those two spots. Like, as you're driving, you can usually see them off of there, or see sign of them or something. I'm driving along, and I didn't even really pay attention to the scrub paddock at all, because how burnt up it was. The only thing that made me pay attention to it was the fact that it was burnt up. It just blew my mind. And so I was driving along this straight, and I got down to where the scrub paddock, like the fence line, meets the back paddock, so the ending of the fence line for the scrub paddock. And I was pretty much like, okay, well, I'll park my car here, and then I'll walk down probably another 100 meters, and then walk into this gully or the river, and walk along the river into where I can jump the fence to go to these new dams. So I pull up at the scrub paddock fence line, and I jump out and I take a piss. And as I'm taking a piss, I look over my car, and walking down the scrubline paddock straight to me, literally where I've just parked my car, is a mob of 9 deer. And obviously they've seen me and they've smelt me, and all of a sudden they just take off and go straight into the scrub paddock and wander away from where I was. And so I'm like, well, I've just screwed this whole afternoon up. So I jumped in my car and I drove it further down. I parked it in the creek. I tried to jump back up, but the winds were just not playing in my favor. So I kind of just decided to leave them and do a bit of a loop from where I was, and still go and sit off at the dams. I'm like, I'm not going to chase them in through this scrub paddock stuff right now. One, because it's been burnt to a crisp, and so it's a lot more open. And two, I don't really want to stuff up their whole afternoon pattern. Like, potentially just stopping for a quick piss is not enough to ruin that whole sequence of things that they do. So hopefully, if I just go about my afternoon, they'll go about their afternoon. Let's see how it goes. So that was the plan. I pulled into the creek. I went down, got myself in. Like, the creek's actually quite nice, and it was pretty windy, and the wind was pretty choppy that day. So I was like, hey, I'm going to check out for pigs anyway as I'll go through this creek. But I didn't really have high hopes of it, to be honest, because of how choppy the wind was, how swirling it was. It was, back and forth quite aggressively. And so I went and I sat off on this little creek bed where I could see the new dams. And so I'm sitting at the top of this creek bed, just sitting in the shade, just hanging out. And I was like, I'll just wait here until something comes by. And was just kind of glassing it and seeing what I could see. And as that was all happening, I heard something come up behind me. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I've tried to sneak around as much as I could to get back behind me and see what it was. But that's exactly the direction the wind was going. So whatever it was, it obviously run off once it had heard me. Once it had smelt me, I'm pretty sure. And so I just kind of sat off that dam for a bit. I eventually creeped right up to the dam, was hanging out by the piles of dirt that had been dug. And it was just kind of like, really, I was like, oh, this is not really happening. There's nothing really coming. This is about the time that the farmer said that they'd been seeing them. It was getting dark. So I decided to go back into the back paddock, the main paddock that I'd been talking about. and walk through it because they can typically they use it as a bit of a crossing ground. And so I just walked in through there and pretty much went through the middle of the paddock. So you can see a lot of things, not everything, but you can see a lot of things from side to side as you walk through. There's kind of a few rolling hills. And so I just decided to walk through the middle of it. And so by the time I kind of got all the way through, it was nightfall just about. And so I started walking my way back to the car, and got in the car, got back to the farmhouse, and it probably would have been 8 o'clock. Well, thereabouts. So I got there, got talking to the farmers, told them what happened, and they were like, "Oh, that's unfortunate," and just kind of talked about where they'd seen them a heap. And that back paddock in particular is one that I'd seen them a lot. And what they do is they go from the scrub paddock, they cross the back paddock, and they go over to another paddock that the farmers have over to the side. Not actually the one where the new dams are, but the one kind of neighbouring that. And so my goal was to hop up early, go down, check the winds, and go and hang out where they pretty much use as a thoroughfield, as a crossing ground on their way through. And so that's exactly what I did. I hopped up nice and early. I got out pretty much just on first light and checked all of the winds and everything and got it in my favour and got down to pretty much I parked the car exactly where I had parked it the day before down in that gully, down the river gully. So I got down there and I started walking my way through and just quiet and just walked with purpose, but I also moved slowly because I knew that there was the opportunity that the deer could be in any place from there. But where I was trying to get to was essentially only one mountain line over, or one rolling hill over. So I came over the hill, and I knew there was cows about, but I walked straight into a big mob of them, and so not actually like bumping them or anything, but they're just kind of off to the side. And typically, I've kind of found that whenever there's a whole heap of cows about, that the deer don't really like to be near them. And so that kind of got me a little down. I was like, God damn it. Like, I was sure that they were going to be here today. And so I started walking a little less carelessly, and walked down this hill, meaning that the face of where they usually are is kind of pointing right towards me. And it was kind of like a little bit foggy almost. And I think that's actually what saved me, because I'm like, holy fuck, there's some deer. And so I was like, oh, geez, there was definitely one hind that I saw. And so I quickly just kind of got myself into a better position. And there was like these pretty big shrubs that I could pretty much stand behind fully without them seeing me. So I was just kind of hopping from one to the other as I walked down. And keep in mind, there's still cows. The cows are kind of off to the left of me, and these deer are right in front of me. And so I start walking towards them, and I knock an arrow. I get in pretty close, like probably within, it must have been about 50 meters, maybe 60 thereabouts. So I'm kind of at the bottom of the hill, and they're at the midway up this hill. And it's not like a big hill; it's just a slope. But the issue being that obviously with that timing of day, like with your thermals, that there's potential that that's going to suck me straight up towards them as it starts to heat up. And this is all by, I'd have to say 6, maybe not even that late in the morning. And so I'm kind of sitting there. The winds are blowing side to side, and the deer are up in front of me. So I'm like, okay, there's a fair chance that winds are going to stay all right. We'll just kind of play it out. And I kind of got myself too far into the middle of it, trying to figure out how many deer there actually were, to back out of it, because they had been feeding across. So I had left that where I'd come from was a big open, it was directly in their line of view now. And so I had to I was trying to get my way up to a bush. So I had to hop from one bush to the other, which is from left to right. And then I had to pretty much do a diagonal dash to this other bush. And that would have put me within probably 30 meters of these deer. And so I'm doing the hop from the first bush, like the left to right bush, and that's probably like a 10 meter move about. And so I started moving, and then the wind swirled, and I felt like a little breeze on my neck. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is all done. And the deer, to my surprise, they didn't actually run off. They just popped their heads up, and they're like, something's going on. And one of them, who was obviously like the head hind, she was like, boom, boom, starts doing their bark. And then they just went back to eating. They just stayed on doing their thing. So I just sat down and I waited there for ages, just watching them do their thing, just eating. And there was her who kind of kept looking about. And then there was another 2 hinds and a little spiker. And the spiker, like, to be honest, he was small. He was small-bodied, so he's obviously freshy. Like I'd say, probably this year. But his antlers, they were still in velvet, but I reckon they would have been more than 12 inches long, like more than 30 centimeter ruler, definitely. Which to me that screams really good news. That screams great genetics, hopefully, to come from him. So yeah, when I saw that was really impressive. I was kind of like, oh, that's great. That's great news for later years for myself and for the farmers as well. So. Yeah, anyway, back to the story. I was kind of hopping between us, sitting down because they'd started barking, and they were just very sus from then on. So the one hind was very sus. The other three deer were just kind of doing their thing. They didn't really care that much. They kind of thought, I guess they have a system, and she was kind of in charge, and so they were kind of just kept doing their thing. So I actually spent a lot of the time just watching them through the binos, just to kind of get an idea as to what their body language is like and what they actually do. And it was really interesting to see because she was obviously very uptight. Her ears were locked on. She was kind of, even when she would eat, her ears were still very locked on and faced just towards the valley, so down where I was, versus the other deer were just very relaxed and they were just eating. And so I kind of shuffled my way across to behind this bush, and then unfortunately the wind swelled again and they just took off over the hill. And so we're standing in the middle of the back paddock at this point, and where I had parked the car was in the top left-hand corner. Where the dams were, you had to jump the top right-hand corner. So we're literally standing in the middle, and they're going over towards the right-hand side, towards where the deer were. So with the direction I was going, though, this would have been my left. So they went left. And I was like, if they're going to do their regular path, they're going to try to get back to the scrub paddock, which is on my right. And so the best thing for me to do right now is to go jump into the scrub paddock and hang out just along the fence line and wait for them to come. So I did that. I jumped across. I ran across. I jumped into the fence paddock. Into the scrub paddock, and I hung out in the next valley along. I just sat down, but I didn't just sit down. I started walking down the hill, and all these cows start coming straight up towards me. I'm like, they're really going to ruin my plan here. So I ended up just sitting down. I was like, I'm going to sit here. I will let the cows get past me. And probably by that stage anyway, these deer would have come around if they're even going to, because of these cows being in the way. So I sat down. I was hanging out for a while, and these cows start walking up towards me. And then they decide to, instead of keep walking towards me, just hang out and feed on this fence line instead. So I was like, okay, I need to make up a new plan here. Like, if I'm going to see these deer as they come through, I need to kind of get around these cows. And they've got, like, in the scrub paddock part, they've got like a little valley system almost that the deer use, because it's lowland within the highlands essentially. So the scrub paddock goes straight up in a sense. It's like a ridge, and a few ridges that jump across. But in the bottom of this ridge is this little valley system. It's almost like where the waters have run and eroded the land. And so I jumped down into this little creek system, this little lowland, and started sneaking my way through. So got all the way around all these cows and got all the way to the other side. And I was about to climb up this hill, up this part of the ridge, so I could look back over that whole back paddock to kind of see where the deer had got to. And as I start walking up the hill, I look to the left at the last lot of cows, and sure enough, they're not cows, they're deer. And I'm like, oh, this is sick. Like, this is perfect. If I can sneak back down this hill without them noticing me, because I'm literally in clear view to them. If they had just looked into the scrub paddock, they would have seen me. But I think I was quite fortunate because of the sound of the cows and everything getting around. But as I was walking through this little creek system, I'm like, oh, wow, this is all the little places that they go. Like, you can see their little footpaths. You can see the things that they've been, that they frequent quite a lot. And it was hard to say if they've been frequenting it recently, because this is the paddock that's all burnt out. But it hadn't really come into this part of the actual, this part of the paddock. It was pretty much from where this valley system ends, or this creek system ends, from there, like the top of the creek, all the way up the hill. So there was this one part in particular, and I was like, wow, this is like definitely a fair crossing. I'm like, it'd be awesome just to sit here, because there's bushes all along there. It'd be awesome to sit here and take a shot from this position. Like, that's a perfect shot for some deer. And so I'm literally like, that's where I need to get back to. I need to get back to that perfect shot bush where I can take a shot at these deer as they walk along the fence line. So as they're in clear view of me. I duck down. I pretty much start bum sliding down this hill to get back into a good position. I get into this creek system and I run myself around, or fast walk, I should say, myself around into the spot where I was pretty much in that crossing ground, essentially, like that, the game trail, but it's up onto a hill with all this bush that's sitting to the right-hand side of the game trail. And the deer are walking along the fence line, which is pretty much, it sits right in front of that. So the fence line is just crossing straight in front of me. I'm standing at the top, just hanging out in this bush, which is still in the shade right now. And the deer are going to pretty much cross my path. So I start range finding everything around me. I've got a tree at 20 meters. I've got it's really the way that it's set up. There's a lot of bush land there, unfortunately. There's like lantana bushes. There's just a lot of little shrubs and stuff around on this part of the land, because it's not really land where the cows go to graze as such, especially right where I was shooting. And so I'm sitting there, and within, I'd say probably a minute, like not even, these deer are coming right to where I need them to come to. And so I'm like all set up. I've got my arrow knocked. I'm ready to roll. And without me even knowing, literally the hind's right there. Like there's a hind just popping up her head. I was like, oh, fuck, they're right here. Like they're ready to go. And so I draw back, and the only deer that I can see is the spiker. And I'm like, that's the small spiker, the one that I just talked about, the great the great genetics that I'm all stoked to see in a few years' time. Like, oh fuck, and he's only small. I'm like, oh, and I kind of hesitated a little bit, and I was like, you know what? It's not actually a clear shot because of the way that the fence line sits. The fence, like the wire itself is sitting on his vitals, plus my gap. He pretty much had his head at this tree that I talked about, the 20-meter tree. He's sitting at 22 meters. If I take a shot, there's not a clear shot at his vitals. I'm like, I had to just sit and check myself for a bit. I'm at full draw, like holding on this animal. I'm like, don't do it. So I let down, and I'm like, go for one of the hinds that are just about to walk out the other side. So I draw back, and same goes just with all the shrubbery that's around. Unfortunately, I just can't get a shot. Like I've got their heads in clear view, but I've got no point of their vitals. Some of it's grass, some of it's shrubbery, and it's like, you know what? Like in my head, I just couldn't take a conscious shot based on the fact that I've tried to shoot through bushes before and not had that work for me. I'm like, you know what, it's just not going to work. Like, you just can't take this shot. And I was so disappointed because they're literally just about to walk into my wind, and there's nothing I could really do. And sure enough, they walk into my wind and they all just start to take off up the hill. I'm like, fuck, like that was my chance. Like I felt so... I was actually really proud of myself for not taking a shot. Like I was literally having that debate in my head of do I, don't I? And I didn't, and I was very proud that I didn't. But at the same time, I was so gutted, and it was like such a hindsight moment of just like, why did you not get set up better, or why? Like all those questions come into your head as to why it didn't actually come together. And for me, I actually did a little video, and it's funny because I've hunted with James Doomsday before, and I said in the video, I'm proud of myself for not taking that shot. And I said the old Matty would have taken that shot, and he sent back saying, yeah, he would have, which I laughed at because I'm like, okay, that is a fair sign of growth on my behalf. I thought that was a good sign at least. But yeah, it then kind of played with me for the rest of the day. Oh, actually, so these deer ran up the hill. I tried to chase them a little bit, and I'm like, you know what? If I put too much pressure on them now, it's going to scare them off forever. So I kind of did a complete loop-de-loop and went back in the direction I was going, back through the scrub paddock. And I was like, you know what? There's a dam in this back end of the scrub paddock. So you go over a ridge down into this big paddock, and there's a dam there. And I'm like, I'm going to go hang out down there. Even though it's all been burnt through, I'm going to go see what sort of life is down there. If the dam still has water, there's a fair chance that these deer have been drinking down there, like getting their little water fill down there. So I went back up and over the ridge, like the opposite direction to where these deer had been going. And I got down, like checked the winds, pretty much had to do a bit of a loop up along the ridge and then head down into this paddock where the dam is. And as I'm heading down the hill, I just hear this big like stomping, and the wind is blowing directly across the face. So I'm walking with the wind left to right of me, walking down into this hill so I can walk with the wind then in my face as I approach this dam. And so I just hear this stomping, like they just take off all of a sudden. It's that same mob of deer that I've literally just seen on the fence line. They've gone and done a massive loop. So where I've walked's probably been about maybe like a kilometre already. Maybe like as the bird flies, as the crow flies, maybe not as far. But I've kind of crossed up, and they've gone and done like a monster loop around me and gone over like multiple ridges even to get to where I am. They've walked literally straight into my wind and just taken off again. They've like shit themselves. And obviously it just feels like to them that I'm just tormenting the hell out of them. So they take off, they run down and jump into this paddock exactly where I'm going, where the dam is, and they just run straight towards the dam. So I just sat there. I just waited for probably a good, 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go see what we can do. So I start walking down towards the dam. And it's pretty crunchy, but it's not as bad as what you'd think. Like with it being recently burnt out, like there's still logs that are smoking. That's how fresh it was. So it was a week ago that the fire had gone through. But you take your steps on the wrong things and it's a loud crunch. You take your steps on the not so loud things, or on the not so burnt things, I guess, and it's not as loud. But it's not as loud as what you kind of expect it to be, I guess. And so I'm walking in towards this dam, and I'm just trying to get eyes on it. And once again, I'm now walking with the wind in my face, so it's going straight behind me, which is great. I'm walking down, and then I decide, hold up, I can't go this way because it's going to put me too close in, and potentially with the way that the wind was changing, it could put me in a bad spot if there was something on the dam. So I had to kind of keep going, like backtrack a little bit and keep going around. There's almost like a hill that I was trying to get over. So as I go over this hill, the wind blows straight in my face, and something behind me takes off. I'm like, what the fuck's that? So I look across, and all these deer just take off again. So they've gone into where the dam is, or in that direction, and they've done a complete 180 almost. Not 180. Yeah, I don't know. They've like done a big U-turn almost, but gone off in a slightly different direction and head back up this hill. So as I've gone over the hill, they've passed me at some point beforehand, and sure enough, they're just sitting right there and run off shit scared again because I'm trying to get to this dam. And so I kind of thought I've pressured these deer quite a lot, and they haven't actually run that far. You know what? I'm going to try pressure them a little bit more and see how it goes. So I ducked back on the side of the hill that I was on, and went around and kind of stuck in as close as I could to the real thick stuff, and was just glassing, taking my time to really try to see if I could see anything. And long story short, I couldn't see anything. They weren't about. I'm pretty sure they'd gone right into the thick stuff by that stage. Like they'd essentially been scared 3 times by me by this point. So I think they'd kind of cottoned on to it's time to get the F out of there. And so I just kind of hung out, and I went in and I went to the dam. Eventually, like I did a big loop and came back to that dam. And it was getting pretty late by this time. It was getting very hot by this time. And so I just kind of thought, you know what, it probably is a good chance to go back, get some breakfast, help the farmers out because they'd mentioned that they had a few things for me to help them out with. And then I can come back out this afternoon. So that was pretty much it. By the time I got back down into the back paddock and walked all the way up to my car, I think it was close on 10 o'clock or something. Excuse me, maybe 10 o'clock, maybe thereabouts. And so I went back, I had some food, and then I got to work with the farmers, and I'd slept like shit that night and the night before. So I was actually pretty wrecked. And so I'm just helping the farmers out with some big lifting stuff that day. And we cleaned out this whole shed, and we did a few things. It was just a big day by the time that it had even got to the end of it. But by the time we'd even got to lunch, I'd already done a whole heap. Like I'd trekked around the mountains a whole heap. I'd lifted a whole heap for them, or with them. And it was just like one of those days where you just start to feel pretty physically wrecked, and I was starting to feel probably a little bit emotionally wrecked just because of the play around with the deers and the deer. And it kind of felt like that was the constant story, and I think that's just what bow hunting is. It's that constant battle and learning of being being in with the animals and learning what they do and seeing how close you can get to them. And then if you so happen to be fortunate enough to get a shot off, then that's great, but it's not always the way it's going to be. And so it got to, I think it was like 2:30, and I was like, it's too early to go down the back and hang out with the deer yet. Like, it was 4 o'clock on the dot, or it was like 4:10 the day before when I was taking the piss and the deer were literally walking towards me. So I'm like, look, I don't want to be down there before 4 o'clock. And so we're still in the house paddock, and down by the house paddock there's another creek. And I've definitely seen pig and pig sign down there. And so I was asking the farmers if there was any pigs down there of the moment, like that they knew of. And they said, look, our neighbours had been down in the creek because it's adjoining creek of their properties. And they said they hadn't been able to see anything. So go down and see what you can find. Like, there's definitely pigs around, but we haven't seen them for a while. So I went down and had a bit of a look, and there was definitely a fair bit of like fresh-ish tracks, but no fresh droppings or anything. But yeah, I had a fair walk through there, and I got literally as far as the end of the creek where it meets the neighbour's property, and this hare popped out, and it just popped out, and it's just kind of sitting there. I didn't have easy access to my rangefinder at that point. I'm like, I reckon it's at 22 meters. And so I was kind of sitting there. I was trying to get my rangey out, and as I was getting my rangey out, I was getting it out with my right hand, which has my trigger on it, my trigger release on it, and of course I knock it round a whole heap, and the hare kind of takes off another few meters, and he's now at about, once I finally get the rangefinder out, he's at 30 meters to the bush, so I'm guessing he's probably like 32, 33 meters away, but there's the bush in the way, so I start moving down and walk into the sandbank, and at this point I've got a shot at the top of his head, and I'm like, do I or don't I? I'm like, nah, let's go for it. And so I knock an arrow, I range him again, and I take a step, and the step is like the loudest step of of the day, and he just runs straight off into the neighbour's yard. I'm like, oh, well, it's obviously a sign that he gets to live today. But he was actually a very pretty hare in regards to his coat. Like, typically they're one shade on top, and he was almost like a speckled colour, like a fallow deer, but in a hare. And so yeah, it was just really fascinating to see, and so it was quite nice just to kind of have that moment with him in the creek bed before I made my way back. I'm like, okay, it was now I think 3:30, 3:45, something like that. I'm like, I can track back home pretty quickly, jump in the car, and pretty much go down and hang out with the deer. So I did that, got back, jumped in my car, drove down to the back paddocks, which is like I don't know, maybe 5-10 minute drive. So I get down to the back paddocks and I park up close to where I've been parking up before. I hopped out of my car, and I just remember being so tired, and I hopped out, and I'm like, maybe I should hop back in my car and have a quick nap. Like, that's how tired I was. I was just wrecked. I'm like, nah. I hopped out and I stood out of my car. I didn't have my bow or my bag with me yet, and I'm just leaning up against the car, just like, I don't even know what to do today. Like, I don't even know which way to go. I don't even know how to approach this afternoon. Like, I've essentially just come in and stirred everything up. They're not going to be doing their regular routine at all. Like, this is ridiculous. And where I've actually parked this time, I can see that fence line where I'd scared them the day before. And so I just kind of glassed it for a little bit. I was glassing it and looking down. It's completely clear, like nothing's there. The winds are kind of swirling all over the place, and I just sat there, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? And I said to myself, I'm like, I just need a sign. Like, I just really need a sign. And the wind blew like so hard in my face. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good sign. Like, that's an idea. It kind of gives me a clear view as to what I should do. And the idea that was kind of throwing up in my head was, do I go back over towards the dams? These new dams where the deer have been found to be hanging out, or do I go along the fence line where they came from and hang out? There's a creek, and that creek that I talked about where I parked my car, it essentially goes onto the neighbour's yard and back into their property. And in that creek is where I've found antlers before. I've seen deer before. I've seen plenty of sign there before, but I'd only ever seen deer kind of coming out of it or going into it. I'd never actually seen them in there. And so I was like, you know what, that's probably a good place to go. And then when this wind blew, it was like, okay, that's a perfect place to go. The only issue being is that if I walk down that fence line, it's in complete open view, And if these deer are coming out, it's going to ruin the whole afternoon again. Like if they're coming out and they see me walking down as this perfect shiny object walking with the sun in my face, pretty much walking towards them, there's a fair chance they're going to see me. I'm not going to see them, and it's going to ruin this whole thing. So I was like, you know what, it's just a risk that you're going to have to take. Like, you've already stirred things up enough, just go for it. So I pretty much power walked my way along that fence line, jumped into the scrub paddock, power walked my way along that fence line, and I found myself coming right up to the creek bed, to the first part of it. And so I started creeping up and over. There's like the one last mound, and this mound is just absolutely covered in so much leaf. Like, it's ridiculous. So I literally take my first step, cornflakes. Second step, cornflakes. Third step, cornflakes, and a scatter. Something run off on the other side of the hill. I'm like, fuck, get fucked. Like, of course that's the way that's going to happen. So something took off that other side. I never actually saw what it was. It didn't sound huge, but it didn't sound too small either. So there's a chance it could have been a hare. There's a chance it could have been like a smaller deer potentially, like a little spiker or something. And I guess I'll never really know. So I was like, you know what, just get over this hill nice and fast, get into the creek bed. So I did that. Got into this creek bed, and unfortunately it's not really much better for the leaf coverage. It's pretty much just really and so up to this creek has been burnt all around as well. So there's literally, I can see smoke on the other side. If I was to walk around this bend, I could see smoke just coming from this smoldering log, and I'm like, oh heck, what do I do? Like, it's not the nicest place to be hanging out. I'm like, at least it's cool right now because it's still hot. It's still hot out. It's cool right now, but and it's not burnt. I'm like, that's two positives. Like, what the heck? You may as well just keep going through. You've obviously come in for a reason. So I kind of kept walking. I walked in and I find this, once again, cracking leaves the whole way as I'm walking. And I find this crossing, like a fair game trail. It's all through sand. I'm like, you know what, that's a pretty good point. Like, I'll just hang here for a bit. I just stood there and I was standing there looking over this hill. I'm like, if a deer was to come right now, I'm hidden enough that I'd be able to get a good shot on. Not expecting a deer to come, but I'm like, you know what, if something was to be in here and it was to walk over the hill, that would be all right. So I just stood there. I reckon it was probably a good 5 or 10 minutes of just hanging out. I'm kind of like, I really don't know how to approach the rest of this. And I just had this gut feeling. I'm like, there's something here with me. Like, there's something about, I don't know what it is, but I can sense, and this is funny because it's something that Adam Kavanagh told me about. Like, try to almost narrow into your bush gut sense, and it's really trusting your gut in that situation. And I was like, okay, standing here is not going to do me any good. I need to start moving again. I'm like, I need some signs once again. Like, I'm in a position I don't really know what to do. I was like, if I cross straight over the top of this and there's something in here, there's a chance that it's either going to see me or hear me, and it's gone completely. I'm like, but if I go back down the hill that I'm standing on, of the creek mouth essentially, and I go back in through the creek, there's just Crunch City. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take Crunch City, because if there's something over the hill here and it's kind of windy and stuff, I'm like, if there's a fair chance that the Crunch City is not going to be loud enough that everything within the creek system is going to run away. So I feel like you're pretty safe. So I get into Crunch City, I start walking, and I start walking up towards that smoldering log that I was talking about before. I'm like, maybe I'll get up on the other side and see if I can see some stuff. And I get up on the other side and get this wind just like blow in the wrong direction. I'm like, that's horrible. Don't stay up there at all. Like, get back down the creek bed. So I jump back down the creek bed as fast as I could. And I started just slowly like moseying my way along again. And I came across some deer poo. I'm like, yes, that's a good sign. Like, I knew they hung out down here. And I was like, okay, there's a fair chance this looks reasonably new. I bent over to touch it. As I bent over, something just goes poof, and like took off right in front of me, and it scared the absolute shit out of me. You know, I don't know if you guys ever done it when you're walking. This happens to me all the time where I am in Queensland, but as I'm walking, there's these little quail that like they fly off, and they literally wait until you stand on them or just about stand on them. They and jump up in front of you. And there's usually like a mob of like 5 or 6, and oh man, my heart drops every time. It's like, and so it was that sort of feeling. This hare poof, took off right in front of me. I was like, oh my God, and it just scared the shit out of me. But I was like, man, you need to knock an arrow. Like, there's a fair chance that there's going to be other little hares getting about. I'm like, remember, there's a small game here too. I'm like, this like they're good practice. Let's knock an arrow, and we'll just kind of take your time with it. And so I step forward like 2, maybe 3 steps and going nice and slow. And I'm standing in the middle of the creek bed. I'm stepping up towards this tree, which is literally a game trail that I'm walking through. And as I stand there, I look up and there's these 2 deer. They just walk straight up onto the top of the creek and they're about to come down into the creek. And I look and I'm like, fuck, they're close. I'm like, if I move at all, they're gonna see me. Like they're definitely right on me. And she looks across. There's a little spiker and there's a hind, and she looks directly at me, and I'm like, I've blown this. Like it's already over before it's even started. And she looks back as if she didn't even see me. I'm like, what? This is awesome. And so I'm looking. I'm like, this is too difficult a shot. There's all these. Maybe I'll put some stories up on Instagram. Like I'll do from start to finish and tag it as like my deer hunt, and see see if anyone can tell me what the trees are. But it's literally just like these long, skinny trees. They're obviously trying to get sunlight, and so they're long, skinny trees. And I think I can't even remember. I think they had like pretty much just like little bristles on them. Anyway. They're thin and there's lots of them. And I'm like, that's a very narrow shot. Like she's standing there and I can see enough of her, but she's pretty much between me and her. We're shaded between these trees and between these little bristles or whatever they are that they have. And at first I'm like, it's too hard a shot. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck that. Like, no, this is the perfect time for you to shoot. Like this is exactly what you train for. This is exactly what you shoot your bow for, is for shots like this. So I got my rangefinder out. I ranged her. She's at 30 meters. And I'm like, dude, now is the time. And I drew back and I was like, this, in my head, all I was saying was, this is what you shoot for every day. Like, this is what you've trained for. This is what you've trained for. I line her up and I'm like, it's now or never. This is what you train for. And I took the shot and it went like straight through. And I just, like, I heard this massive, like a huge thump. And it got her, obviously, and she jumped and she ran straight down into the creek. And in my head, I was like, there is no way I pulled, like, that shot felt perfect. There is no way that I pulled that and I got her in the gut. Like, please, dear Lord, do not tell me that that's exactly what's happened. And I'm watching her and I'm almost like fearful that that's what's happened, because as she's run off and I just heard that smack, and like, to me that I thought straight away, that's a gut shot. Like, you've just popped her gut bag. That's exactly what's happened. And she's run down into this creek. She's run up the other side of the creek. She's hit a tree and she's fallen over. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like it's done. Like, it is. And I've actually got a video of it. And oh man, I was so emotional. I just remember the feeling of, like, I was watching her as she was passing, and just I started having tears roll in. Like, I realized that it was literally 2.5 years of putting these red deer on a pinnacle and chasing after them and trying to get used to them and knowing every part of this property now. And really, if it wasn't for previous years and trips of knowing that deer hang out in this spot at times, and yeah, I guess just really piecing it all together, and for it all to finally come together, it was actually just such an emotional ride. And I just remember being like, oh, take your time, like don't go spooker. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've done a good heart shot though. Like, that's literally where I was aiming for, and that's where I got. But yeah, I was still so unsure because of the sound that it had made. And so I kind of just stood there and I videoed myself for a little bit while that happened. I'm like, okay, go find your arrow. We'll just kind of go and see what's going on. And I was also very mindful that she was with the spiker. And so I was like, hey, there's a fair chance that he could still be hanging out. Like, if I get another shot on him because he's hanging out, I'm going to take it. And so I very quietly moved over to where they were, walked up on top of the hill, and straight away could kind of see everything. Much to my surprise, there wasn't like a big blood splatter. And I was just kind of, I was like, oh, that's odd. But I could see that she was down. I could see that she was dead, so I wasn't too worried. And it made me really not pay much attention to blood at all. So I kind of Hopped up there, could see where she was standing exactly, where she had jumped from, like as she got shot, as she'd moved. And I could see my arrow had actually gone through her, and she had jumped with it in her, and it had fallen out literally just in front of her. So she'd jumped down the hill, and it was literally right there. So it was great. I grabbed my arrow, and it's got perfect blood on it. I'm like, man, this is actually this is perfect. This is actually everything that I'd ever wanted. For the hunt to actually be like it was not messy. It was not two shots. It was just the one perfect shot. She dropped within sight of where I was shooting, like from where she'd been shot, and I could just see where she was. So I'm like, this is perfect. Like I'd left her sit for probably a good 5 minutes. I'm like, it's probably time to go over. And so I walked up. I actually, rather than going back down through the creek where she had gone, I was like, I'll just walk around the top of the creek. So I walked around the top. I filmed right as I got to her, and she's fallen. Where she's fallen is she's literally crashed right on top of a meat ant nest, and so the poor thing is literally just like covered in ants. Like I would think probably 2,000 odd ants at least, are just sitting all over her chest cavity, all over her face, her eyes, like everything. She's just literally covered in ants. I'm like, fuck's sake. So I like, my plan was to get there, give her some time, like thank her and do all this stuff, like take a little bit of a moment to be, I guess, very grateful and thankful for what had just happened. And it turned into like chaotic moment all of a sudden of trying to get all these ants off. I'm like, I can't just brush them off right here. So I grabbed her by her legs, her hind legs, and dragged her probably like 20 or 30 meters. And so I got down and started brushing off all these ants. I'm like kicking them off. I'm using my hands. I'm just smashing them off as much as I could. They just keep running back on the body. I'm like, fuck. So I grab her, I drag her after knocking a heap of them off, probably like another 20, 30 meters. I'm like, I want to make sure that there's no ants around. And so I really start brushing her off again. I do the same thing. I did it like 2 or 3 more times. I've dragged her and kicked off all these ants, then dragged her, kicked off all these ants, dragged her, kicked off all these ants, finally got off all these ants. I reckon I've moved her probably 100 meters from where she was even seated to start with, just to get these freaking ants off. And so I was like, that's when I did my little time with her. I was like, thank you for this, like for everything, the meat that you're going to feed my family, for just for everything, just being grateful in that moment. And it wasn't hard, to be honest. Like I was, the gratitude was pumping hard. Like I was so grateful of that moment and for that deer and for what it was going to provide, for what it had already provided. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a photo of this. And so I did the old grip and grin and just pepped up there, like had her kind of stand up and stuff, and no, not stand up. I set her up so I could do a grip and grin, is what I'm trying to say. And I put my phone up against a tree, took the photo, and yeah, I just remember being so stoked. I was like, this is like, yeah, like I said, it was literally everything I'd wanted it to be in regards to it just being so clean. And so I was like, perfect, it's time to start the process. And so I was in kind of thick-ish bush, but not ridiculously. I'm like, if I drag her 100 meters or so, I can, maybe another 100 meters thereabouts, I can get the truck in. Like I can literally get my car here and I can just chuck her on the car and we can do a good job of like gutting her and everything back at home. So I'm like, it's all of probably 20, 30 minutes difference. What's it going to make? Like I may as well. So I'd seen this video previously of this dude. He used to always take a piece of rope into the bush with him. And what he would do is when he'd get a kill, he would cut through essentially the bottom of where, like if you think about the jawline going around your tongue, he would cut through that bottom, like the soft part. And so he cut through there directly up into where the tongue sits, but not through the tongue, and then tie a rope through there. So it's a rope essentially around like the bottom jaw. And I'm doing it right now as I'm as I'm talking to you guys, doing it like with my fingers. So I put a rope through that bottom jawline and tied it around my hips. Not an actual tying of knots, but just kind of wrapped it around my hips and started walking. So she's dragging behind me like a sled. And man, she's heavy. Like, I reckon 120, 130, maybe a little bit more kilos with gut and bone and everything in. So I'm dragging this deer, and it's not like sled dragging is not an easy feat at any time, but especially when you're dragging over bumps and lumps and rocks and sticks and whatever else. And So I'm just kind of cruising. I'm like, I've just got to get her a couple hundred meters. So I start walking this deer through, and I get to a point, and I can see my auntie and uncle. They've literally just herded all this cattle up, and they're moving them up into this paddock. And I'm like, that's perfect. So I drop what I was doing, I untie myself, and I start walking up towards where they are, and I'm waving my bow. I'm like, yeah, it's happened. Like it's happened. Like I just remember being so pumped, and I'm just walking towards them like, hey. I'm not actually yelling out because they've got cows with them. I don't want to scare the cows, but I'm just like so stoked walking towards them, shaking my bow around. And I didn't want to get too close because the cows, it looked like they were moving the cows into the paddock that I was going into, or that I was coming from. So it meant that if I walked too close to them, that the cows are all going to turn around, want to get the fuck out of where I am. So it's going to stuff up their whole muster. So I'm kind of mindful of that. And I'm like, I think they've seen me already. So I go back, I put my bow down, I go back and I grab the deer and I start walking it up to where the bow was. So I grab my bow and I start walking, and I'm like, maybe they haven't seen me. So I start shaking about again. I'm walking towards them. They're just driving really slowly. I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. They see me. They're coming in. They're driving really slow. They just take off up the hill. I'm like, oh fuck, they're not coming. So I'm like, I need to rethink this really quickly now, because where I need to be, like literally where my car is where all these cows are. I'm like, is that going to scare them off or not? Like they've literally just been mustered into this paddock. They obviously don't want them to be moved about. I'm like, you know what, stuff, I'm just going to do it. So I just trekked straight forward. Once I realized they weren't coming to the paddock that I was in, it made it a lot clearer that I could just jump the fence and be in there with them. And yeah, they were fine with that. Like obviously the cows get talked to a lot by the farmers, so I was just talking to them as I'm walking through, and they thought I was trying to feed them, so they'd all just follow around me and mob up and whatever else. So I jump in my car, drive it back, open the fence, jump through, like drive through the fence, drive down, get to where she is, and I try to lift her up onto the back of the tray, and it's just like, wait, and there's like no way that's happening. Like I tried to maneuver a few different ways, and it was just not happening. I'm like, okay, I have to gut her here. Like there's no way I'm going to get her home to be able to gut her at home and do it all there. So I'm like, you just need to make it happen now. So I cut her throat. Cut around her anus, and then I gutted her, cut up through the middle, gutted her, and got everything out, got the liver, got the heart, got the kidneys, kept them and put them in the gut bag straight away, or in the game bag straight away. And then I loaded her up onto the back of the tray. And to be honest, it was hard work. Like that alone probably took me a good 20, 30 minutes, just with the maneuvering. I was thirsty as all buggery by the stage. It was so hot, and I'd been forgetting to drink because of everything that had just happened. So I was drinking some water, spitting on my hands to get rid of all the blood. I'd been given some knives by a guy, Jesse James. So his handle, I believe, is Dead Man Jesse. I'm going to quickly search that right now while I'm talking. But he'd given me these two knives. Jesse, I'm not very good at multitasking. Where is it? Oh, Instagram just died on me. So he'd give me these two knives, and one of them has a big gut hook on it. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. I'm going to use the gut hook for cutting her open. So I kind of hooked it in and started trying to drag it, and it just wouldn't go at all. I'm like, you know what? What's the point? This knife is so sharp. Like, you might as well just use it. And so, Dead Man Jesse. So it's DEDMANJESSY. So he sent me two knives, absolute legend. Like I want to say a massive thank you to him. But he was moving from Queensland down to Tassie. He had to remove some stuff that he had, and so he sent me through a knife, and it was these two knives, and they're absolutely awesome. Like absolutely love them to bits. And they got put to thorough use on this first hunt. And like the first hunt they went on was this hunt. The first hunt my new bow went on was this hunt. And so it was like all this new gear got used straight away, and I'm just absolutely so thankful for everything and how it pieced together. But yeah, so I chucked her on the tray and I drove her back to home. And I got there and I just gave my uncle a big thumbs up, and he just gave me the biggest smile, like, yes. And he yells out to his wife. He's like, it's happened. It's happened. I hopped out of the car and came up, and he just gave me the biggest hug, like, good on you. And he just said, mate, that's a lot of hard work. Good on you. And I don't know, it just felt like a big sense of achievement. It's an interesting thing to say that killing something is a sense of achievement, but I think realistically, everyone who's listening to this podcast understands that you do put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you like literally the amount of stuff I've learnt about deer and animals within Australia this like over the last few years since starting the podcast has been absolutely incredible. And then obviously getting out in the bush with them and seeing them do the things they do, being that close to them is just absolutely fascinating to me. And it's why we love doing what we do. Like, really, I think I can speak for a lot of bow hunters when I say that. Like, we love getting out there, not just to kill the animals. It's to be out in nature and be with them and go through the motions of it. And it's just, it's just absolutely beautiful. So anyway, my uncle is like, cool, do you want to tie her up on the tractor? So he did that, tied her up on the tractor for me. Like, we just got some chains, fed them through her Achilles essentially, and tied her up, and I got to skinning. So I started skinning her that night, and then let her hang overnight, and then the next day I quartered her out essentially, and I drove her home that day, got home, started butchering, was being pretty fanatic with it, like making sure I was doing a good job of everything and making sure I was keeping as much of the meat as I could. I did a fairly good job of just cleaning her up. I don't know exactly like the fascia or the sinew, I guess you'd call it. I don't know the extra little bit of skin that kind of comes over. And for anyone who's hung an animal overnight, you'd see that, how it kind of dries out the skin on top of the muscle I'm trying to talk about. I was cutting away a lot of that, especially the stuff that had the blood through it. So just cutting all that off and doing a really good job of that. But yeah, so got her home eventually. So it's about a 3.5 hour drive if the traffic's good. Being a Sunday, the traffic was freaking horrible. And so I got home. It would have been about, I think it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock when I got home. And I started butchering pretty much straight away. No, I lie. I actually went and bought myself a vacuum seal straight away from BCF. So it must have been 4 o'clock when I got back to Brisbane. Went and got that from BCF, came on in. And the lovely lady who was working, I don't remember her name, Janice. Let's call it Janice. She gave me 20% off because I miscalculated what the price was. I was like, oh, are you sure that's the price? I thought I read this. And she's like, oh, no. And she's like, hey, just called her manager. She's like, hey, can we give this man 20% off? And she did. And I'm like, wow, you've just made my day on top of already being an awesome day. So it was like just a lot of good things were happening for me. So I got home and I started butchering up, and I kept being pretty pedantic by it. And so by the time I'd actually finished all my cuts and vacuum sealed everything, and I pretty much I've got her back legs to turn into mince. So I chopped them up pretty much into complete mince, apart from the shanks. Shanks are all ready to go just as shank meals. I think it was close on probably 9:30, 10 o'clock by the time I kind of crashed out that day or that night. And I remember laying down in bed and I slept well. I think that's the best way to put it. Like I slept really well that night. I was just so stoked with how the weekend had all played out. So that was my first red deer down. I'm absolutely pumped. And so it's been a few weeks now. There's probably a few things I forgot to say, but I'm stoked with how it all kind of played out. The following weekend, I decided that I was going to make some sausage, and I was going to mince up all the legs and everything. So I got my mincer out and I started going. I went and bought some pork fat. So they literally sell it in packs of like 8 to 10 kilos, just ready to go. It's literally what they mix in with their sausages at the local butcher. Really good quality pork. So I grabbed one of them and I started mincing it. I minced all of it, and then my mince just made this horrible noise, like a clunk, and like clunked, and then kind of dragged a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I turned it off. I'd run out of gear oil, so I had to run to the Super Cheap Auto, filled it with some gear oil, came back, turned it on, and it started kind of sounding all right. So I kind of kept moving along with it. And then it chunked out again, and then it started smoking. And I was like, oh, this is not good. So I stopped using it because obviously there's something bad going on with it. No, it actually ceased. So it started smoking, then it ceased. It stopped working and cut the power. I was like, oh, fuck, that's not a good sign. So come Monday, I ended up, so I defrosted all his meat, kind of kept it frozen for the week so I could then defrost it to mince it at a cold temperature. Defrosted it, ready for this, and then it's not fully defrosted, and didn't get to mince it at all. Like I minced maybe a kilo of deer meat, and so I've had to bag it all back up and chuck it back in the freezer, plus this extra pork that I've got. And so the pork's minced. I'd started like getting all this other stuff prepped. Like I'd prepped some, cooked some onions and some figs. I'd got some apple and some cranberries, and I just kind of pepped all of that stuff up ready to mix in. I'd got some garlic and onion and cooked them up, and that was going to be like my 3 different flavors of sausages. And unfortunately, it all just kind of fell apart. So I literally has spent the last, this is now I think last week that the mincer broke, so I've spent the last week trying to get in touch with the manufacturer and have not had any luck whatsoever because it's just a China cheapie, unfortunately, from eBay. And so I've been messaging the dealer from eBay, and everything's just gone wrong with it, unfortunately. So that's where I'm at with it right now. I've got a whole heap of meat kind of cubed up, ready to be minced, and unfortunately don't have a mincer right as of now, but I'm going to get sorted out, and I'm going to make the most delicious sausages anyway. But I've played around with the ribs, and I've played around with backstrap, and oh my gosh, the backstraps, so good. And like the old favorite for this is just literally chop up an onion, chop up some garlic cloves, chuck it over the top of the backstrap in a container, put some olive oil so it's kind of coating the meat, and then there's just meat and onion and garlic all within the olive oil, and just let it sit for like a few hours. Give it 4 hours at least. I like to leave mine for a whole day if you can, or overnight if you can. And then cooking it on an open flame. Like ideally you want to brown it on the open flame, and then you want to chuck it in a roast, or chuck it on so it's roasting for a bit. So I did it all on the Weber. Just fried her up on both sides, browned her up, and then chuck some aluminium foil down, and then let it sit for probably another 10 minutes, just roasting. And then from there, chucked her out of the Weber, like got it off the Weber, put it in a pan and just let it sit, like let it set for probably another 10 minutes. And oh my God, it was absolutely to die for. Like that is my favorite red deer recipe by far so far. Even with all of the different neck roasts and shanks and stuff like that, which I usually love, but that was incredible. The other thing that I ate that was absolutely delicious was the heart. It was the first thing that I ate, and it was on the night that I was doing the butchering. I decided to chop up and cook up her heart, and it was so good that I ate probably half of it, and then I'm like, I need to keep this and give it to like my most loved ones. Like when I'm going for Christmas this year, this is the thing I'm going to cook. I'm not going to tell them what it is, but I'm going to give them little bite sizes of this heart, and they're all going to freaking love it. And then I'm going to tell them that it was deer heart, and that will be the story of my deer. But yeah, I really want to say thank you to everyone that's joined me for the journey so far. I mean, this is literally what started the journey of becoming a bow hunter. I found out that there was red deer on my family's property. I found out that I could hunt them with a bow. The bow was less, it was just easy to get hold of a bow and go for it. There was less friction to get started. And then I realized that there's a lot of friction to actually get a deer down. Like it's hard work. And I put in a heck of a lot of hard work and hard time over the last few years. And it's funny, I was thinking about this actual hunt just like even since this happened, I've kind of played with it in my mind. I'm like, did you actually put in the desired effort for getting a red deer down? Like, and what I mean by that is that it wasn't a spot and stalk as such. I had a gut feeling there was something in the creek system with me. I was walking around cautiously as if there was something in the creek system with me. But I didn't know that there was actually some deer there. And it so happened I was in the right place at the right time. And I think, I don't actually even know what I'm trying to say, but really it's almost like, is that just what hunting is about? And it's not necessarily, because there's some really precise hunters, and I've been a lot more precise with getting onto deer before. But I think, in a sense, the way that's kind of played out in my head a few times is the fact that I didn't take the shot on that deer earlier in the day. I was rewarded for that, because I think it would have been, this is the weird ways my brain works. It's almost like a sense of karma coming back around. But I would have almost definitely just injured that deer and fucked around for the whole rest of the day trying to get him down, compared to getting the perfect shot that I wanted it to be. Like the pristine way that it all happened is like, I could not wish for it to be any better or any different. So whether I actually spot and stalked or not, I think at the end of the day it doesn't really matter, because I'm making more conscious decisions as a hunter, as a bow hunter, and I think that's what's setting me up for being in the positions. And like, really, I know my block now. I know where the deer hang out, and I think that plays in benefit. And it's so much of the talks like the podcast I've done previously is all about knowing your block, knowing where the deer hang out, knowing what the animals do, knowing how they function, knowing every little habitual factor about them, and then it puts you in better position so you can be in the position when things like this happen. So I almost got upset at myself and thought, hey, you didn't really hunt this deer. You were just in the right place at the right time. Like, yeah, yes, but no at the same time. So, I mean, really, for me, it makes me just want to get out there and do it again. And it like really, this is far from over. Becoming a bow hunter is just starting. Maybe I should change it to became a bow hunter. I don't know, but I think realistically, I'm stoked to kind of keep it going forward. And I actually, so because I had to drag my deer, because I had to drag her because of the ants, and then I chose to drag her, or because I dragged her because of the ants, and then I propped her up to do the photo. I actually saw I'd burnt off a heap of her hair, like it pulled off a lot of her hair from being dragged. So that's when I was like, you know what, stuff it, I'm just going to drag her by the jaw to get her out of here. Otherwise, I would have probably done a lot more effort just to keep the hide really clean. But because of that, like at first I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to keep the hide. Like I'm going to keep every part of this deer. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be the like I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And I will remember this for the rest of my life. But I don't have a hide to show for it because I had burnt a lot of the fur off. So that happens as part of it. And really, I think it's kind of like I'm treating every little other bit with respect. Not to say that that was disrespectful of me, because it had to be done to get the ants off. So yeah. Anyway, thank you guys. Yeah, thank you for everyone. I started on this, but thank you for everyone who's been with me for the whole journey. Thank you to everyone who's commented on Instagram or Facebook posts. Facebook, I'm sorry, I haven't really been on Facebook for ages and paid much attention to it, but if you guys are on Instagram, you want to hit me up, you want to talk about anything, please hit me up. I've really enjoyed the conversations I've been having about bow hunting and hunting in general on Instagram recently with people in the private chats. It's awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you for, thanks for being here with me. It's been awesome, and it's been a fun journey. And like I said, it's only just getting started. So I hope you're getting out. I hope Christmas is mighty merry for you. I hope you get out hunting over Christmas. If not, I hope you get an awesome hunting season in 2021. Let's hit it, team. That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bow Hunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you're enjoying the show, or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.